This is the briefing for Friday, July 24th. There are some interesting things developing within the stock indices. There's some divergences and some things that are just very interesting to watch and to see how they develop over the coming week. This is the spiders on a daily basis, and you can see the rotational period that we've been in for quite some time, going all the way back to May. And you can see this is yesterday's trading. We had a shorter term area of consolidation or rotation right through here, as you can see. Yesterday we broke through that rotational pattern, and today we retested that breakout point, really not doing much of anything in terms of price development for the spiders. Volume in the spiders was down today over yesterday. We had a little bit of a tick up in 52-week highs minus 52-week lows, and breadth was positive in the NYSE. So it's going to be very, very interesting when we look at the other indices because we have some intermarket divergences. This is holding up much better than at least the NASDAQ and the Russell. And so we'll see what happens. Interestingly enough, that we did have positive breadth in today's trading, and yet we tested the low from yesterday, but that held. So that was a little surprising. We tested the high and took it out slightly, but I would say it was just a test of the high of yesterday. So really not anything to weigh into our analysis as to what we can expect in the coming week. But now here's the NASDAQ and represented by the Qs. So you can see the rotational pattern that it was in, similar to the spiders. You can see the rotational pattern on a shorter time frame, similar to the spiders, except the spiders was at the upper extreme and the Qs are in the middle of the range. Now, in yesterday's trading, we broke through the middle of that, the lower extreme of this middle rotation. In today's trading, we broke through the lower extreme of this area of rotation, which is very, very interesting. Now, the NASDAQ is showing quite a bit of weakness in terms of price development. You can see volume in the Qs ticked up slightly, just basically flat to slightly higher. But we have a divergence in the NASDAQ breadth. So you can see here we were negative 560 shares, but you can see that we have a lower price over the previous day's low, and we have stronger breadth than we had in the previous day's trading. This is going to be very, very interesting to see how it's reconciled. Now, one of the things that is very, very concerning, and I've talked about the NASDAQ and how the internals in the NASDAQ are very concerning, is that this reminds me similarly to potentially what occurred in 1999 and 2000 as the NASDAQ was topping. And as it came down, it brought the other indices down with them and a lot of other stocks with them as well. But while we have a breakout here on a divergence, that divergence would suggest that it was strengthening slightly from an internal perspective. So what's going to be important now, this support area was 687, 688. What's going to be important is if it trades back through that 688 level on Monday, that would suggest the potential for a false breakout here and the fact that we may see an additional rotation back up. The next level of resistance would come in at the 700 area, which would be this level right through here. Now, it's important to keep in mind that since we did break through, we could also see an acceleration of price to the downside, even though we have a slight divergence here in terms of market breadth. We're still negative 560 shares in the NASDAQ. And if you look at net volume, look at how net volume, how negative it was. 1.9 million shares more to the downside as opposed to the upside. So that's something to keep in mind going into Monday's trading as well. Looking at the Russell, you can see the Russell was in this rotational pattern here with a shorter range, I should say, at the upper extreme of this area of rotation. And you can see that right through there, breaking through it yesterday, retesting the breakout, and then trading back down to test the low of yesterday. Volume in the IWM lower, breadth positive, We didn't take out the low from yesterday, so it's not a divergence, but net volume is negative 670 million shares, or 679,000 shares, as opposed to up volume. So there is showing more weakness coming in as well. Now, the slight divergence that we see in market breadth in the spiders, the spiders been showing us, S&P 500 been showing a little more strength than the rest of the indices, but this market is still a very, very weak market from an internal perspective. Looking at where we are in terms of overbought and oversold, we were approaching oversold condition in the NYSE yesterday, worked that off completely to a neutral position today. We were extremely oversold in the NASDAQ, worked that off to where we are just slightly above oversold condition in the NASDAQ. So I think that unless something changes, I think the NASDAQ is going to begin to weigh on the other indices, and we're going to see the potential for additional downside. Keep in mind that the most important aspect right here is this level right here, the 688 level in the Qs, and in the Russell, it's going to be the this 294, 295 level as well as yesterday's low. So those areas are critical areas in terms of what could happen in terms of price development. Any additional movement to the downside needs to be followed up with the continuation of the internals weakening even more than they were in today's trading, other than the fact that the NYSE breadth was positive, showing a divergence between price and the internal development. Looking at the percentage of stocks above their 20 and 50-day moving averages. Now, this was yesterday. This is the S&P 500. So you can see there was a strengthening today within the S&P 500, yesterday's low, and you can see what was happening here in terms of the percentage of stocks in the S&Ps above the 20-day moving average declining. This is the strength that we saw in breadth in today's trading. The same thing, the trend was beginning to turn down, or had turned down, in terms of the percentage of stocks above the 50-day moving average, but then we got this spike in today's trading as well. A little bit different in the NASDAQ. So you can see that we got this move down and continuing to move down. The difference was basically flat between yesterday's trading and today's trading. So you can see that the percentage of stocks above the 20-day moving average is declining. The percentage of stocks above the 50-day moving average, this is something that is screaming and waving a red flag to us that something really is beginning to happen within the NASDAQ itself. And then in the Russell, you can see the same thing as the NASDAQ. You can see what's happening here. Percentage of stocks above the 20-day moving average and the percentage of stocks above the 50-day moving average as well. Earnings are coming in decent, which is a little surprising. CPI was down, but if we look at what's happening with interest rates, you can see that this is the 30-year T-bond and this is the 10-year. So you can see that we're approaching the most recent highs, which suggests that something else is going on within the indices. The market has not yet really shown us its true colors in terms of what's happening from an internal perspective. But for one thing, it is certain that the NASDAQ is really screaming a warning in terms of what is happening in terms of the internal components and in terms of price development. Breaking through this level today was a key factor. The question is going to be on Monday, will this hold in terms of a retest of the breakout? Or if it doesn't hold, then we'll see potentially another move up to test the 700 level. If not, if we see lower prices and you see that volume is increasing and you see that breadth is decreasing, eliminating this divergence here, then that would suggest that we're going to see another acceleration to the downside and a potential test of the 556, 557 area, which would be the next level of support in the Qs. Should be a very, very interesting close to the month, beginning on Monday. Have a great weekend, and I will pick this up on Monday as well.